Hello and welcome to Sky's the Limit. Today's program we have with us a very special guest, as we always have for you. This guest is very closely linked to the history of Pakistan and its creation, and we'll be talking about that in detail. And it's a very special personality. Today we'd like to welcome His Highness Nawab Jahangir Khangi, Sovereign in Exile of the state of Junagadh. Thank you so much, Nawab Sahab, for being with us on our program today. It's a great pleasure for us to have you with us.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Sharmeen Sahiba. I'm very much grateful to you and Pakistan Television for having me with you today.
Right. So, Your Highness, there's so much history with your family, and it's just incredible history. It goes back hundreds of years. And I'd like to begin with that. The state of Junagadh, its importance for us in Pakistan, and also, being one of the princely states, it's got such rich history on its own. Would you care to share a bit about that and about your whole family history in Junagadh, starting from pre-partition?
Yes, absolutely, Mohtharama Sahiba. There is no doubt that we have a very, very old history of the state, and of course my family as well. And Junagadh was a state which consisted upon approximately 4,000 square miles of land, and we were enjoying 100 miles of coastline on the Arabian shores. Mm-hmm. So we had many ports there, out of which Verawal was one of the principal ports. Mm-hmm. And it's been serving from the pre-partition eras as the gateway for all the trade which was being carried on in those days from the Middle East. And then we have, of course, Junagadh, the famous Gir forest. Mm-hmm. of our state, where we have the Asiatic lions. Mm-hmm. And on that the National Geographic Society and Discovery have made a lot of documentaries on it. And of course the Asiatic lion was protected by our forefathers, and now the Gir forest has become a sanctuary for all the wildlife, and it's becoming a more of a touristic place. So a lot of tourists are coming. Mm-hmm. From all over, to come and see all that wildlife. And actually, our forefathers, we hail from Kandahar. Mm-hmm. So we have a very old history, because at Fateh Makkah also, our forefathers were there at the time of Fateh Makkah. And I have my family tree of my ancestors from the time of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam up till now. Mm-hmm. But our history is marked down from Fateh Makkah and then onwards. And when Shah Suri took over Delhi, and Humayun had to leave and go in exile. And so he was visiting all these places, the surrounding areas. So eventually what happened was that he came to Kandahar, where he met one of our forefathers. Mm-hmm. And then those people were, of course, very powerful people, our forefathers over there, because they were in the government of Afghanistan. And so they got into some understanding, and then these people used to have their own armies, and so they went along with Humayun. Mm-hmm. to back to India, and then there was a war, and then they deposed Shah Suri, and they installed Humayun back on the Gaddi. Okay. As the Shahnshah Hindustan, the Emperor of okay. India. And then ever since they were working in the darbars. Now darbar is was like the courts of the Mughals. Yes. And the history says that the respect the Mughals used to have for themselves, the same type of respect was given to our forefathers. And then there were, of course, assignments, and they used to take assignments, you know, and they used to honor them. And in recognition to all the services they used to render to the imperial Mughals, so they received, you know, lands for that, for those services.
Okay.
And then these lands were the private lands, you know, which belonged to our family.
Okay.
Which then in 1735, one of our ancestors, they declared, they said, why don't we proclaim this as an independent sovereign state?
Okay.
So proclamation was made in 1735, Junagadh.
Okay, and this was the ancestors that came from Afghanistan. This was the people who established the Babi dynasty.
The Babi dynasty.
In Junagadh.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and then they later on went on to one of your forefathers and declared its own state.
Yeah, in 1735
In
they proclaimed as
1735.
an independent sovereign state. And then the Mughals were getting weaker, of course, and the East India Company had come in India. And then after that, we had made treaties with them. So we had to accept their paramountcy, that they were the paramount power in Hindustan. And that was it. Otherwise, they didn't have much to say in the everyday affairs of the state. And the sovereignty was kept within whoever was the Nawab of Junagadh from time to time.
And Junagadh was, at that time, pre-partition, it was run so fabulously. I mean, it was, the fifth largest state in terms of revenue generation. It was one of the second largest Muslim states, but it was a welfare state with free education, healthcare, food for everyone. It had its own ports, like you mentioned earlier, its own army, railway, postal services. I mean, it was so progressive and it was so wealthy at that time.
Yes, absolutely. There is no doubt about that, Mohammed Sahiba. Like Junagadh was very, very advanced because a lot of the revenues was going for the welfare of the people. And I think the first asylum for leprosy was made in Junagadh because those people were just left to go in caves and live their lives there. But then we had the asylum there. So it was named after Prince Albert Victor, who was the consort of Queen Victoria. And so it was called Prince Albert Victor, Lepers Asylum. And, because he had also come to visit Junagadh at that time. And so it was very nice. And then, at the end, just a little before the partition, they were bringing in all the latest equipments and machineries from America for movies and for dramas and all that. But unfortunately, that never happened because the time was going by very fast, and then the partition took place.
And it's also very interesting for people to know the life of the rulers at that time. Your great-grandfather or grandfather had a huge love for dogs. He had about 2,000 of them or something like that.
There is no doubt that they had a love for all the animals they used to love. They had any animal you would name, they had it over there, Even they used to have these lions in the palaces, and they used to hunt with cheetahs, so the cheetahs were trained, and then they used to hunt with the dogs as well, and so it was like a fairy tale. One cannot imagine, with all those beautiful palaces and all that grandeur, and the whole decor of the court was like in silver. Even there was a silver chariot, the sofas, everything, the tables, even the poles of the tents, which were put, the canopies, they were all with gold and silver. So it was a very, very rich state, and one cannot imagine, and the whole state was just left like that behind at the time of partition, because what happened was that when the British, there were some acts which were endorsed by the British Parliament, like the Indian Independence Act of 1935 and the Government of India Act 1935 and the Indian Independence Act of 1947. And so by virtue of that, a few things happened. First of all, that India gained its freedom, and Pakistan was carved out of that. And then there were the ruling, the princely states which were ruling under their respective rulers. So then, of course, you know, they were given the choice whether to accede to the dominions of Hindustan or whether they wanted to accede to the dominions of Pakistan,
Right.
or they wanted to remain independent.
And at that time, the ruler of Junagadh was His Highness Nawab Sir Mohabbat Khanji.
Yes, that's right, my
Right.
grandfather.
Your grandfather.
Yes. So what they did was, we had the state council, which was the state government, which comprised of, had representation of both the Hindu community as well as the Muslims. So my grandfather took them into confidence and asked them that we are planning to accede to our state with Pakistan. So what is your opinion? Because it was very important. They used to always take the sentiments along of the people. The people were very, very happy. Even today,
Yeah.
that's why they remember us.
Right.
And
Because as you were mentioning that it was a rich state, the lifestyle of the Nawab was very opulent. However, the people were also were so well taken care of. Everything was free for them.
Yes.
So it wasn't like the subjects were neglected while the
Yeah.
rulers were enjoying life. It was everybody was well
everybody,
looked
you know, because it was a welfare state and nobody used to sleep hungry. Everybody had food to eat, you
And
know.
free education
in the
at that
morning,
time.
and education was there. Used to be given, clothes, books, pencils to encourage. Even the students used to get certain amount of pocket money from the state to encourage them for education.
Wonderful.
Then if you talk about healthcare, then medicines and hospitalizations were, of course, the express responsibility of the state. And then, of course, there were these free cooked meals, which we call langars, you know, which used to be going on in our state. So everybody used to eat freely. And then there were a lot of other benefits they used to give. So we were not that opulent.
And the rulers were loved because of that.
And
The
we were,
rulers were
yes, of
loved.
course, because
Right.
people were happy, they were satisfied.
And here we can add also that there was a majority Hindu population. Rulers were Muslim, yet they were loved because of the way
Yes.
they treated the subjects.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, what happened was that when my grandfather acceded his state to Pakistan, so the Indian sent its armed forces and took over the physical possession of the state territories, which was against the norms of all international law. It was against the Charter of the United Nations. And so that was very, very sad, and that's what the Indians are saying even today, that the majority, a bit of the majority were the Hindu community over there. But so what? If we look at the overall scenario, there were so many states in India where the majority of the population, of the state population, were Muslims, whereas the Raja or the Maharaja of that state, the sovereign of that state, was either Hindu Rajput or a Sikh or something else. So that was not the criteria. The right of choice was, of course, given, and it was well thought by the British, and it was given to whoever was the sovereign of the state.
Right.
So they took over, and then Sir Zafarullah was the first foreign minister, and when he took the case of Kashmir, they also mentioned Junagadh in there, so it's lying there in the United Nations, pending before the United Nations for a just solution. And it's very unfortunate that something like that India could have done. We could have never thought that he was going to take that step, you know. So now I just want that, we want to see that a just solution takes place and that we are given our a justice
Right.
to
So
us.
the issue of Junagadh is not dead. I mean, it's still a very, it's very much alive. We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
At the time of partition, I'd like to go back. At that time, you were talking about the council, how it decided with the sovereign to join Pakistan. At that time, I think it's very important to mention that the Diwan at that time was Shahnawaz Bhutto Sahab, who was the father of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, right? And the grandfather of Benazir Bhutto was the Diwan in the state of Junagadh.
Yes, that's absolutely correct, Mohtama Sahiba, because the Diwan was like a nominated prime minister, and in the last days, especially during the partition era, Sir Shahnawaz Bhutto was the Diwan.
Right,
of Junagadh.
Right, and then Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Saab was also the Diwan of Junagadh temporarily too, right?
Yes, because after they came here to Pakistan, and Sir Shahnawaz Bhutto was not feeling too well in those days. So that then Zulfikar Ali Bhutto took over the affairs from him, and he was also acting as the Diwan of Junagadh for a certain period of time.
Right. And after the Indian Army took over the state of Junagadh, then your grandfather was already in Pakistan, and also Sir Shahnawaz Bhutto had to leave as well, and then ended up living in Karachi.
Yes, that's right. You see, but what happened over there was they did a referendum over there. They said that the so-called referendum, which I don't think is a proper term for that, because the Indian Army had surrounded the ground where they were having, it was a ground of some college, and they were having that referendum over there, and it was surrounded by the Indian Army. So how could somebody, dare vote for Pakistan under those circumstances?
Absolutely.
So this is what we have to, and this is the stance of Pakistan's first foreign minister, Liaquat Ali Khan, that and it's ever since it's been the policy of Pakistan, what they want to see, to install the Nawab of Junagadh on the throne of Junagadh over there, and so that he can have his throne and his establishment over there back in order,
right,
as was the situation at the time of partition.
Sure.
And then after under the auspices of United Nations, they can have whatever if anybody wishes, but they didn't agree. The Pakistan state doesn't agree to that referendum, and very rightly so.
Very rightly so.
Very rightly so.
Right. So now, Nawab sir, we'll come to your life. You became the sovereign in exile in 1990. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
And before that, now you were growing up in Karachi because your family had already gone there. What was that like for your grandfather found himself, he was getting the instrument of the treaty of accession signed and ratified, etc. The Indian Army takes over Junagadh. Suddenly you had to leave everything behind, and he had to be sort of in Pakistan and set up everything.
Yes,
over here.
actually I was born in Pakistan, but my father was born in Junagadh. So when my grandfather came over, my father accompanied him also there. So my life has been that I was being educated, in the convent of Jesus and Mary. At that time they used to have the boys as well. So after that, sometime then we were sent to Burn Hall in Abbottabad,
Right.
which was run by the missionaries, by the Roman Catholics, and it was administrated by European fathers, So they used to have about approximately 11 of them who used to oversee the whole. Otherwise, the local staff was then, local from here. And so I was there. We were, getting training, and we were getting educated. So we were there. I was there for about approximately 8 years under their training, and then, after that, for about a year, I spent in Karachi. And then we were sent to Switzerland for our high school education. And
was that all of you and your siblings, or was it just yourself?
No, it was just myself, and my brother was there with me also. And then after that, I came back and I did my bachelor's from Karachi. I was actually accepted in 3 colleges and universities universities. I was accepted in Canada and in UK and one in Southern California. But then I ended up here because my father wanted me to stay with him.
Okay.
So then I learned a lot from him because he was being educated. He had gotten his education from UK at that time as a heir apparent. So that was like one of the most prestigious colleges known as Imperial Service College, the Hillary, which used to specialize for the bureaucracy, you see. So my father did his ICS, which was the Indian Civil Services examination. So he used to write beautiful English, you know, and so I stayed with him, and then you know, he taught me a lot of things about the state and how the governments are run, about politics and about, you know, everything. I learned so much from him, you know.
Right. The time you spent in Switzerland, you became an avid skier, and you were a gold medalist over there as well. You were studying in Gstaad. Now that's a ski resort for the rich and famous. So, you got a gold medal from the ski club of Switzerland in skiing. So, after leaving Switzerland, did you ever ski again, or I mean?
Well, not exactly. But once I went to visit Europe in 1980s, and then I went to UK, and then from there. I came down to Switzerland again, and we did some skiing over there for a few days. So that was the last of it, you know.
Exactly. Then you came back here with your father and learned all about your history and all the work and the affairs of state. Your family still has a lot of original documents from letters and correspondence from Quaid-e-Azam and between your grandfather and him, and so much rich history is right there in the hands of your family.
Yes, they are. But a lot of the record couldn't come from Junagadh because you see our accession with Pakistan occurred under extremely unusual circumstances where we had to immediately leave Junagadh and come to Pakistan, and so everything, like all the palaces and all the properties and all the wealth and assets, which was enormous amount of, you know, all this, you know, grandeur, and of course the grandeur which a first-class princely state, Indian princely state was, you know, enjoying, you know. So everything was had to be left in a very haphazard way. And then we came and we signed an instrument of accession, and on behalf of the state of Junagadh, it was signed by my grandfather, and on behalf of the state of Pakistan, it was signed and accepted by no less a person than the father of the nation, you know, and the first Governor General of Pakistan, the Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Right. And okay, so you're also into lots of other sports and all as well, in addition to doing your role as the Nawab of Junagadh and trying to bring this issue into light in the UN and around the world. So you've been an avid rower, water polo, you've been a water polo player, football player, fencing, etc. There's so many different sporting activities that you
should do a lot of mountain climbing over there. So I'm also a mountaineer, you know.
Okay, this was in Switzerland?
This was in Switzerland,
right, okay, but we have our great mountains here. Have you ever climbed any peaks here?
That would be lovely for me to do it sometimes, you know. I'm still ready to do it. Even at this age.
Right, of course you would be able to. I don't think there's any limit on that. Right. So wonderful. So, okay, so the things you learned from your father now, how did that motivate you into the current work that you're doing and the current struggle that you're actually going through, trying to bring this issue of Junagadh to sort of claim it back and bring it back as Pakistani territory, right?
Yes. Yes, I have learned every step from him. And every time, you know, I think of how we are going to take this in the future. So I think about, you know, how he has been guided me, that we have come all this way to where we stand today. And I had also served as his private secretary for a while, you know, so I was typing out his letters, and even if you go to the Ministry of States, you'll see a lot of letters signed by myself as his private secretary. Okay. So I was very close to him. And then we took this issue on, and we got some people of Junagadh. We have about over 2 million people of Junagadh who are living in Karachi.
Because at the time of, sorry to interrupt you, at the time of partition, when the Indian Army took over, there was a lot of killing and plundering and rapes of women, and so people had to actually migrate as well. A lot of them from Junagadh to Pakistan.
Yes, that's true. A lot of people migrated from there, and a lot of people, when they heard that the Nawab of Junagadh has acceded to his state to with Pakistan, so a lot of people came from those regions, you know, because Junagadh was, of course, the premier chief of Kathiawar, you know, and especially we have a great contribution to Pakistan. If you look in the field of industry, because at the beginning there was no industry here, and what people were thinking was that maybe Pakistan will become a failed state because they don't have any industry or they don't have any economy as such. But it was my people, our people who came from Junagadh, and they were the pioneers. So what they did was they established industries here in Pakistan, and they established the economy of Pakistan. And so that was a great contribution, and you can see that Pakistan is flourishing today by the grace of Allah.
Right. So what sort of industries, particularly?
All sorts of industries in our economy and trade and all. And
Amazing.
So that was well. And then if you look at in the field of social welfare, you find some very great names also, like Maulana Aidi, and like Haji Hanif Tayyab, who's running.
They're from Junagadh.
They are from Junagadh. And if you look in the field of sports, then you have in cricket the Muhammad Brotherans, you know, the brothers.
Okay.
So they were all taught by my father, you know, over there, because my father was a very good cricketer himself.
Really?
And he had played the famous Ranji Trophy over there. So so that was very good, you know, and we feel very proud of the fact that, yes, these people had come from Junagadh, and they had so much, given so much to Pakistan in so many different fields, you know.
And so now there are 2.5 million people from Junagadh in Karachi itself.
That's true, and they all have their, they're all well organized, they all have their own jamaats, and they have their own elections within the jamaats, and they have their own representatives, and they're doing a lot of social work. And they're like about, because mind you, Junagadh was a very popular state. So we had all these type of different people. We had the Pathans, we had the Baloch, we had the Sindhis, we had the Memons, of course. And like that, we had the Arabs, we had the Turks, and then of course we had all these people from the rest of India as well, you know. So it was a very popular state. So we have about 80 jamaats, and they are all functioning, you know, and they all fall under the umbrella of the Junagadh State Muslim Federation.
Wow, and a lot of the Memon business communities from Junagadh as well.
Yes, even today, some of the very big names in Pakistan, the 22 or the 24 richest families which used to be, a lot of them belong to Junagadh.
And they're the ones who came here and set up the industries, as you were saying.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Right.
That's incredible. So you also served as an advisor to the Chief Minister of Sindh at one time.
Yeah.
And on cultural heritage, you know, concerning culture and heritage and archaeology, because that is really your legacy. There's so much culture in your family history and all of that, you know, the whole entire heritage of the region, etc. There's so much experience you have in that, sportsmanship, etc. So tell us a bit about that.
Yes, that was a good experience for me for a while, and the second time I also became for 2 years, so I served 4 years. But the first 2 years I got a portfolio which was culture, heritage and archaeology. And Sindh has got a very great history, you know, there is no doubt about that. Actually, as a matter of fact, you know, the history of Junagadh and the history of Sindh are, they have a very close association in them. Because you see, we had the Kathiawar over there, which is in the province of Gujarat. So the Kathi Rajputs were these people who migrated from here, from Sindh. And then there were a lot of people who came from there and settled here in Sindh. You know, I'm talking about pre-partition days.
Right.
So,
And there's also geographical proximity.
yeah, absolutely, you know, and we were very close. If you go from here, from the Rann of Kutch, there's about 150 miles of Rann of Kutch, and then we have about 80 miles Indian territory. But if you go from Karachi to Verawal, one of our ports of Junagadh, that's only about 250 miles direct.
By sea.
Yes, and then you know it is Verawal port is more closer to Karachi than to Bombay. Bombay is like twice the distance from here. So we were very close, and a lot of the cultures we had over there were because a lot of people had gone long time before, you know, and settled there. So a lot of cultures and traditions we have the same as
They've sort
as
of merged.
Yes.
Right.
But we wanted to do a lot, but then of course, you know, there are always limitations to it, so we could not work so much as we wanted to in those days. But anyways, yes, history is there, you know.
Yes, and you've also done a lot of fundraising for the people of Thar. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, I was there on this team which was raiding, which was getting some funds, you know. So I was just trying to help them out, you know, and I was on that committee as well. So we did that, you know, and then and the second time when there were these very bad weathers, you know, on the coastal areas also. So we went there and we helped those people also with a lot of ration and, you know, all the things that were needed. And then when there were these earthquakes in the northern areas, that also we helped a lot of them by sending a lot of things like tents and, you know, food and all the grain and everything for them.
Is that under the Nawab of Junagadh Foundation that you run?
No, I don't have a foundation as such. I've been just working freelancing. But some people are suggesting me to have a foundation, so we are considering that, you know.
Okay.
That's under consideration.
Right. So your main body of work right now is bringing the issue of, again to the United Nations about the state of Junagadh. Recently in 2020, the new political map of Pakistan included the state of Junagadh, and then you also nominated a Diwan of Junagadh. Can you please tell us a little bit about
Yes,
that?
first of all, I express my deep sense of gratitude to Prime Minister Imran Khan and the present government for showing Junagadh along with the map of Pakistan. You know, the people are very happy about it, the people of Junagadh in particular and the people of Pakistan in general. We are all very happy about this, and it was a move in the very, very right direction, and it should have been done. And they did, of course, show Junagadh once upon a time, many years ago, in the 60s, I remember. But after that, then something happened, and I think a lot of some businessmen were, you know, making these maps of Pakistan, and they just didn't show the importance. They didn't feel the importance of Junagadh, which was very wrong. And so now they have made a law that the territories of Pakistan should be defined correctly, as by the Survey General of Pakistan. So that is very good, and I think that is given the issue of Junagadh a boost. And we are going to take this issue to whatever level is possible, to on the highest pedestal and on every forum possible, and to see that we receive justice. And so far as our Diwan, you have asked me about Sahibzada, His Excellency Sahibzada Sultan Ahmad Ali belongs to the very renowned bloodlines of Hazrat Sultan Bahu, Rahmatullah alayh. They have the shrine over there. You know, he was a saint. He was a great Sufi saint. And you know, this is what the practices of all the Sufis has been. If you see Maulana Rumi or you see Hazrat Sultan Bahu, all of them, they're talking so much about love.
Yes.
And so much about peace, you know. So that is something really very great. And then Sahibzada Sahib is, you know, our, mashallah, the Diwan of Junagadh is a scholar. But I always say the scholars turned masters
Right.
because they are they have so much knowledge and they're just getting education and they're contributing so much in the field of social welfare,
Oh,
in the
yes,
field of
absolutely.
education. And they have a think tank as well in Islamabad, which is a very renowned think tank by the name of Muslim Institute. And they're doing very good job. And we needed a good diwan for Junagadh, and the people have appreciated that much. And I've received a lot of congratulations from, because they're very modern sort of people at the same time, you know, in the sense that they're very, you know, as you know, the world goes along, so they're also going, of course, they have the religion with them, you know.
Right.
And
They're
the
religious
love,
leaders
and they have the love
forward-thinking.
for the religion at the same time. But then, of course, you know, they are very, very modern and they're full of love for all humanity. And this has been the, you know, the the practice and the preachings of all those holy saints, you know, holy saints ever since.
Right, and so there's also now a Junagadh house that's been established at the shrine of Hazrat Sultan Bahu. Tell us about that. That's
Yes,
so
yes,
unusual to see
yeah.
the merging of,
Yeah.
you know, a Sufi
Actually,
saint's
yes,
legacy
yes,
with
yes,
something
yes.
like your cause.
I think that's a very good question. Actually, you know, this family, he's got an elder brother, and they're into sports, you know, and they're into many good things, you know, and they've supported me a lot on Junagadh, actually. And although I knew them from before, but they really started helping me a lot on the issue of Junagadh. And I think we are here today, it is because of them. So what they also did was they made a house over there at the shrine, and they named it the Junagadh House. And they have written the history of Junagadh over there to give awareness to the people. So there are a lot of guests, they come from all over Pakistan, the guests from foreign as well, from foreign countries, and they all go and live there. And so they all see the history of Junagadh, and so that is the love. They're very patriotic, and that is the love for Junagadh and Pakistan, you know.
Right. That's amazing that they've established this, because this is all our culture and this is all our history as well. So now tell us a little bit more about what is the issue of Junagadh right now is pending with the United Nations. So what is its current status, and where do you foresee it going? Where do you want it to go now in the future, and how do you foresee yourself achieving that goal?
Yes. Well, I can only talk very limited on this because I can't express everything what we want to do in the future. But yes, there is one thing for sure, and that is that it's a very legal issue. So we are going to take this on legal grounds and on humanitarian grounds, because it's a humanitarian issue. And it is an issue where great injustice has been done to my people and to me. And so we are going to take it on that. And the status of Junagadh is that in light of international law, the opinions we have taken from people who are authority on international law, they have told us that your status is, I asked them, I said, what would be my status? They said, a sovereign in exile. So that is there, and our case is in the United Nations at the moment. It is lying there because in 1948, I think, there was the Security Council had given a ruling on Junagadh, and they said that first of all we are going to deal with the issue of Kashmir, because this is related to security of the region. And then after that, we will take on the issue of Junagadh. But you see, there has been resolutions on Kashmir, which India doesn't want to, you know, accept that, or the resolutions of the United Nations. They just close their eyes and they say we are not interested in that. What are the resolutions? Which is also very, very wrong and not correct. And the second thing was that I think why they gave this that first we will do Kashmir and then Junagadh, the United Nations. So I think why can't we take it simultaneously, both of the issues together?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And also the justification of going and taking over the state of Junagadh that India gives. It was, there was sort of a unrest in the region, and certain parts of Junagadh asked the state for help. It's very similar to Kashmir, so they can annex Junagadh on that basis, but Pakistan on the same basis cannot make Kashmir its part. So it's kind of contradictory.
It's very contradictory.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no doubt about that.
Right.
Very,
right.
very contradictory,
Where do you now, the work that you're doing to work on the issue of Junagadh, do you foresee if that is ever to be resolved? Do you foresee yourself staying in Pakistan or going back there as a ruler? How would that work out?
I don't know what situation it will take, but there is no point of me going back to Junagadh. I'm here in Pakistan. I may go abroad and establish some offices over there and appoint some people over there which we want to. So we are looking at that, who will work for us in portraying Junagadh, bringing Junagadh in the eyes of the international community, that this is a great injustice which is done not only to the Nawabs of Junagadh, but also to Pakistan, because we are in accession with them, with Pakistan. So we are looking at that,
Right. And what about your children? Have you involved them in this issue as well to fight for its cause?
Yes, I have one son, and he's helping me out in this. Yes.
So this is going to sort of be an ongoing struggle from generation to generation until you actually see the end result that you want.
Absolutely, we are going to go on to until we don't receive any justified solution for this, or rather judgment in this issue.
Okay, and in the meantime, I'd like to just further get into your own personality, which you've got some very interesting hobbies, such as cars and photography. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it's very interesting to see, that you have interest in music and art and so many such things.
Yes. Music is of course there, may it be Sufi music or may it be very classical music. There is no doubt. And actually, when I went to Switzerland, so they asked me, the faculty of the college asked me that they used to have projects like chess and photography and model buildings and all that. So they said, what would you like to take? So I said, I don't know much about it. What would the faculty suggest to me? Also, they suggested me photography. So it was very interesting, and we used to take a lot of photographs, and then we used to go in those dark rooms, and we used to put the negatives and the enlarger, and then we used to develop those photographs and all that. And now that technology is all gone.
It's gone.
Because it's all become digital now.
Right, exactly. But those photographs, that photography was totally different. It had a life of its own and its own sort of, special in its own way.
But that has helped me so much, because in getting all the photographs, the old photographs and the historical photographs, and all the recent photographies which have been done over the years, here on all the gatherings and all the state issues, that it's really helped me out a lot on that. And I still carry that on, although I don't have much time to do it myself now, like I used to in those days. But anyways, we are doing it, and that is helping me even today.
Right. That's amazing. And you also have an interest in vintage cars, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I got this passion for cars from my father. He was very fond of machineries and cars. But we don't have many cars, just got one or two cars from my father, which were, just keep them as my family heirlooms. And but yes, the passion is there, the passion is there for cars,
Right, and you're also a huge wildlife conservationist. That's one of your interests as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. I would really love to do that. I love to preserve the ecosystem of this world, and I feel so much, the whole ecosystem of this world is getting so much disturbed, by the humans, you know.
Absolutely.
And then you know what happens, then we get you know, earthquakes, and we get storms, and then we get tsunamis, and so that is like all the nature getting back at us, you know, because we have not behaved properly, and then we should really look into that, into the greenery. You know, we are cutting down so many trees, you know. It's very sad.
Absolutely.
And look at all that big plastic island. You know, there's a big, huge island somewhere in the ocean. That's all a plastic island.
Yeah, because of the pollution.
And nobody is looking into it to do anything about it, you know. And so all these things, you know, and that is the marine life, it's destroying the marine life, and it's very sad to see.
Absolutely.
Our planet, you know, get so disturbed, you know.
Absolutely, and you also, you know, you have a huge interest in environmental conservation, as you were just saying, about marine life and all, and pollution. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, of course, you know, we are cutting down so many trees for commercial purposes, for that. But how much are we growing? We are not giving back anything to our you know, although our government had planned some, you know, plantation of some new trees, but I think there should be a lot more that needs to be done, not only by our government, but I'm talking about all the governments in this world, and they should do something about that, the plastic island, you know, over there to protect our marine life. And somebody was telling me the other day that they used to have about 8 to 10 feet of snowfall in Murray, and now there is hardly 1 feet of snowfall over there. So it is all the water that used to come from there.
Climate change.
Yeah, and now we are going to be having we are going to see some freaky weathers in the future.
Yes.
So we have to do something about that. There may be, you know, floods at times, and there may be droughts on the other hand. But
and the sad thing is that Pakistan and third world countries, smaller developing countries, aren't a huge contributor to greenhouse gases, yet we are having to face the brunt of its effects of climate change.
And we are not making any dams for that, you know. There is no planning for the future. So once I made a speech quite many years ago at the Nazariya Pakistan Trust. So I told them, I said, why don't we make artificial reservoirs? So at least when we have floods, so the water is, if we can't all come on one platform and we all agree to make dams, you know, then that is the only way in which we can conserve some amount of water can be used for agriculture purposes, because it's an agro-based country, basically our country, you know.
Right. Conserve the rainwater.
And the population is rising, so
it's going to be a big issue in the future.
It's going to be a very big issue in the future if you don't start looking into it right now.
Absolutely. Sir, I wanted to just say, Your Highness, thank you so much for giving us your time today and enlightening us about the issue of Junagadh and about all your family's work towards trying to bring it back to Pakistan, because that is really a very noble cause, and we really wish you the best of luck in this going forward in the future.
Yes.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you very much. I'm most indebted to you and to Pakistan television, you know, for having me with you today. And I hope to see that Junagadh will be spoken and, you know, more in the future on all different forums, although I have received much support from the people of Pakistan as well. So I'm very thankful to them, and I'm very thankful to you and to the Pakistan television and all the people who have supported me on this Junagadh issue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So today we brought to you, it's been sort of an educational program for me as well. We brought to you His Highness the Nawab of Junagadh, Nawab Jahangir Khangi, and he's a sovereign of in exile for the state of Junagadh, and basically he's struggling with this noble effort of bringing Junagadh back to Pakistan, and it's not an easy job. It's a very tough job, but we're also seeing how much the community of people who've come here from Junagadh have contributed to Pakistan's economy. A lot of the business activity in Karachi is from the people who've migrated here from Junagadh. So it's important to recognize their contribution, and to recognize the contribution of the family from Junagadh, who's the reigning family over there, and best of luck to them in the future, and we hope to see them succeed going forward as well. Thank you for joining us today on our program, and we'll see you next time, inshallah, same time, same channel, same program, Sky's the Limit on Sunday. Bye-bye for now.